edition of the Bible Believers Podcast. This is kind of something we're going to do every once in a while where we just talk about what's in the news this week, and we'll try to get that episode up right away so that it stays current. And there are a couple of points of interest that I wanted to talk about. The first one comes from an article that I read, and you guys know me. I don't read CNN. I try to stay away from Fox News.
Yeah.
I'm usually on Newsmax or One America News. And this article is from One America News, so will the next one be. This is about a Democrat, Tom Harper, senator of Delaware, and he is attempting to make D.C. kind of its own state so that it has state representation. And so I decided, well, let me look into it, because I thought, well, what is D.C.? Like, how does it vote?
Yeah, it is.
Where are the electoral votes? Does it go to Maryland? Does it go to Virginia? Because it's right in between the two on the Potomac River.
Right.
And so I looked it up, and anyhow, what do I want to do? Let me read this article first, and then we'll talk about it. So this is the article from One America News. Senator Tom Carper, Democrat of Delaware, recently introduced a bill aimed at making Washington, D.C. a state. He took to Twitter Wednesday to discuss, apparently he's not banned from Twitter, to discuss his efforts to give the over 700,000 D.C. residents a voice, vote, and full representation in Congress. I would say that's not wrong.
700,000 people is a lot of people,
but, and I'll show you that they do have a voice, but for years I have fought alongside at Eleanor Norton and at Mayor Browser. I'm going to assume that's like Twitter stuff, or I don't know.
I have no idea.
To make hashtag DC statehood a reality. No, they were ats and then pound sign. A reality, and to give the over 700,000 D.C. residents a voice, vote, and full representation in Congress. Today, I'm proud to introduce hashtag S51 to make D.C. the 51st state in our union. Again, that was Senator Tom Carper, January 27th, 2021. The article goes on to say the so-called Washington, D.C. Admissions Act has received support from several members of the Democrat Party. However, Republicans are concerned making D.C. a state might place two more Democrats into the Senate.
Sure.
Today, we're introducing hashtag
I know, it's so annoying.
S51 in the United States Senate because it is past time to make hashtag DC statehood a reality.
This is really how we
Chuck
talk
Schumer. This is how we're talking now. So Chuck Schumer, of course, is involved in this as well. And then the article ends, Democrats would need at least 60 votes in the upper chamber to pass the proposal, but they may only need a simple majority if the filibuster is abolished, which they are working on. That's one of the big things. So I said, okay, well, let me look into this, because how does D.C. vote? You know, I mean, they got to be able to go. I mean, they have residents. It's not just politicians that live there. And there are over 700,000 people. So I looked it up. And there's a lot of stuff here. I got this from Wikipedia. But it basically it says, the 23rd Amendment, adopted in 1961, entitles the district to the same number of electoral votes as that of the least populous state in the election of the president and vice president. So when it comes time to vote for the POTUS, right, what they're going to get in the least populous state is Wyoming at 578,759 people. I just got that stat. And they have, according to Electoral College map, they have 3 electoral votes.
I think I should move to Wyoming.
Yeah, right?
It's beautiful.
I started looking all this stuff up. South Dakota, North Dakota, and Alaska, they also have 3 electoral votes. There's a number of states in the union that have 3. So D.C. is represented in the same sense that North Dakota and Alaska are represented, and Wyoming is represented. They get 3 electoral college votes. I was also looking at it, and I thought I was curious. It's like, well, how many people do you need to get an electoral college vote? Like, what
That's
makes
something
the
I don't know,
electoral?
right.
Why does California have 55? Well, we understand it's based on population.
But what's that number?
And I'm going to show you the discrepancy in a little bit. This was actually very interesting. It was very eye-opening to me.
Yeah.
Because in Montana, they have over 1 million people, and they still only have 3 electoral college votes. But
Right, where
Wyoming
someone
has
500,000,
500,000, and they have 3.
Okay.
Like, that seems
That is
weird.
odd.
It seems like
Yeah.
there's not the same representation present there. So now get this. It's me and my notes, right?
Well, no, this is good. This is interesting. It really
So
is.
I started looking up, and then I got to this page that talked about how powerful is your vote, and it looked at 2 of the. It took 2 states, which I thought was interesting: New York, where we're at, and it took Wyoming, which I told you is the least populous state. Now this is an old. This was old. This was produced in 2012, so I updated the numbers.
Okay.
But Wyoming still gets 3 electoral college votes, and they now, they're at that 578,000. And then New York gets 29 electoral college votes, and we have 19,300,000. Okay? And I started breaking that down. Okay, so what the point of this page here, a little chart that we have here, Wyoming's representation ranks first in the union. Actually, yeah, it ranks first in the union because they have the least amount of people, 578,000, and they get 3 electoral votes. So
Okay.
what you do is you take that 3, you divide it into the number of their population, and there's 192,919 people per electoral vote.
Okay.
All right, so that makes sense to you? Mm-hmm. And so they are ranked the first. So that means they have, each person's vote is more powerful in the state of Wyoming based on that electoral number.
Sure.
And then guess which ranks? By the way, it's 51st in the union because DC counts already. It's
Right.
already
Okay.
represented as 3.
Oh.
So what they would be is DC with 700,000. You would divide that by 3, and you'd be looking at what 233,000
Yeah.
roughly
Per electoral vote.
electoral college vote. Well, in New York, I love New York. We are 51st. Wow. We are 51st with a population of 19,300. You would then divide that by the 29 electoral votes that we have, and that's 665,517 per electoral vote.
Did you mean to say 19 million?
19 million.
Yeah, what did I say, 19,000?
Yeah.
19,300,000.
By the way, out of that 19 million, 60-something% lives all in New York City and right around New York City, like the surrounding boroughs. 60-something% lives right there.
Not true. I'm going to give you the numbers.
I looked it up recently.
In the bureaus? Well, maybe
Yeah,
in the bureau.
like New York and the surrounding boroughs,
There's 5 of
it's
them.
60-something%. I want to say it's like 62%
I just
all
looked
live
this up
downstate.
today.
Okay.
And so I guess this is kind of the point where I'm headed. Let me first say this, and we can debate that.
Oh, yeah, I'm kind of jumping ahead anyway.
So let's talk. So in the end, what this Democrat's trying to do when he's talking about we want to give them a voice and representation, they already have a voice. They already have representation
For electoral votes.
for electoral votes.
Right, okay.
What you want is two more Democratic senators.
I was just saying, that he's more about the Senate.
Because right now it's 50-50,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And now, unfortunately, because they have a Democrat in power,
Right.
the VP will stand as the 51st vote. Well, then it would be, instead of 100 senators, it'd be 102 senators, and that power would then shift over a little
the
stronger
Democrat.
towards the Democrat. And that would give them, so that's advantage Democrat, right?
yeah.
That's why they're doing it. This has nothing to do with the voice of the people. The Democrats don't care about the people.
No.
They care about rule over the people. So, with that said, and based on what we're looking at here, I still don't understand how do they determine how many electoral votes
Yeah.
go? Why isn't it just the same amount per population? So let's just say for every 200,000 people, you get an electoral college vote.
Can I throw something out there?
Yeah.
Is it, I don't know, it has something to do with landmass?
No.
Okay. Because I'm like, Wyoming's much bigger than New York, or is it something to do
No, it has to do with
square
population.
miles?
Population.
Okay. Okay, so
Population.
go on.
yeah. That's my understanding of it.
Yeah, no. Yeah,
I could be wrong, but I always thought it was electoral college votes based on population. I never bothered to take the time to actually do the math.
right. Yeah, that's
And then
crazy.
to come to find out that here I am in Wyoming, or if I'm in Wyoming, my vote is actually far more powerful,
Yeah.
even though I only have 3 electoral votes.
Right, but you as the
in a
American
state,
citizen,
as a human being, as a
yeah.
citizen,
Yeah.
I have more power in my vote by 3.5 times the New York vote.
Right, because California, they have what, 55?
55.
Electoral
Well,
votes.
I live in Wyoming County,
Yes, you do.
which, by the way, is the #1 dairy producer in our state. I take pride in that. 40,000 people, over 100,000 cows. There you go.
That's pretty cool.
But Wyoming, the state, sounds real appealing to me.
Yeah, I know.
So we have a state representative, David
Yes.
DiPietro, and he has for years. He's been trying to. He always carries around a sign with the state of New York and a pair of scissors cutting off the city of New
Yes.
York.
Sure.
I like that
And
picture.
wanting to make New York a state and then New York City its own state,
Yep.
and to cut
Amen.
those off. And I was thinking to myself, well, okay, if you guys want D.C. for the point of getting 2 more senators, then cut New York in half
Right.
because you'll get 2 more red senators because
Exactly.
New York is red.
Yeah.
Right.
If you look
Separate
at
city.
any electoral map, the whole state is red except obviously New York
City
City,
pockets.
and then some city pockets like Buffalo, Rochester,
But by and
Syracuse.
large, so I started.
Albany.
I said based on what we have now, and I don't know how they would break up the electoral votes, and you just know that King Cuomo would be wanting New York City to represent more than the rest of the state. But here's what I have: the population of New York City is 8,336,000. The rest of the state is 10,963,000.
Two-thirds of the population lives downstate.
Or more.
Well, no, yeah, I mean, so it's
Yeah,
so
but
you're looking at
downstate is-
8.3 million versus
I-
about 11 million.
I looked it
No.
up right now, at least on Wikipedia, for what that's worth. Two-thirds of the state's population lives in New York, in the New York metropolitan area. The rest is all rural and, like you said, red.
Yeah.
Right. But I would
Okay.
they're also going to include parts of upstate,
Yeah.
not just the city. I'm talking the city, cut the city off.
Oh, just the city.
Yes, not the bureaus around the city
Oh,
that would go
okay.
upstate. Because we're technically not upstate. When
No.
a city
We're Western
dweller,
New
they
York.
consider upstate just getting out of the city.
Anything other, yeah, I understand, yeah.
Yeah. We're Western.
So we would have about 11 million people. They only have 8.3 million. So if you were to then take those, and again, I don't know how they would actually officially do it, but if you were to go based on that, it'd be 16 electoral college votes going to us and 13 going to them.
Wow.
Okay,
Wow.
but remember though, there are some 3 million that commute into that city from the outlying boroughs. So if you cut the city up, you still have a lot of liberal in the outlying.
Yeah,
I
the
mean,
other
you're
states,
not going to.
I
would-
still
I
can't
think
word it
the-
any better. You're
I
not gonna-
still think the state would go red.
You're not going
I
to cut
do,
the
if-
cancer
even
completely
if
out.
it
But
didn't-
No,
go
but you'd
red.
have to get rid of Rochester and Erie
Yeah,
County
yeah.
and a few other places too. You're never going to get rid of
Even
every
Erie
Democrat.
County almost went red.
Almost.
Yeah, we
yeah.
thought it
Very
was
close.
for a while. It
In
almost went red
fact,
this year.
I don't know what happened. Frank Smirziak, what I looked, had won my district, but Monica Wallace is the representative. And it took them weeks to count it, and she got it again.
New
And I'm
York
like, what
also,
happened?
the percentage was
He had the lead.
the percentage
Can't
that
trust
voted.
anything.
The percentage that this year, looking at New York, it's usually Democrat by like 20-something%, right? This year it was by only 13, which is still a pretty big number,
that's
but
lower.
it's come
Right.
way down. Somehow though, Trump still lost, even though he was popular everywhere else.
But I would love for that to happen, I guess. So I just wanted to bring that thing
No,
up.
that's good.
They're trying to get 2 more senators. Fine, then let's break up New York.
Yeah.
Right?
Amen.
Let's get 52 states, and then we'll get 2 more red senators.
I've looked it up before. I mean, just thinking again about my county, Wyoming, it's generally about 70-something% Republican in their voting, which actually, out of curiosity, I did compare it to Wyoming, the state, and it's kind of similar in the political arena.
climate there.
It's around 70-something% that votes Republican generally in Wyoming.
So I'm still a little confused on how, is the lowest electoral vote, excuse me, votes a state could get is 3.
That's
yeah.
as
that what
low
it
as it
total
goes,
is?
which is
Okay.
why that disparity,
Right,
I think, because
yeah.
they're not going to give you any less.
Yeah, they're not
than
going to give you like
3.
1.5 electoral
Right.
votes or something. Yeah.
So yeah, they just limited it, I guess, at 3. So
When does it become 4?
Yeah, right.
When does it
I know.
become 5? At what number? You know, and
Yeah.
I suppose that probably those stats are out there somewhere.
You could probably look
And
it
I've even heard that New York has lost so many people that they're on the verge of losing an electoral vote.
good.
Wow. Yeah, but I'm sure California's not far behind. From what I'm hearing, a lot of people are leaving.
The problem is they're bringing their politics with them a lot of times.
Yeah, to
they're
Texas.
moving to Texas. They're moving to North Carolina.
Yep. Tennessee, big
Yeah.
one. Yep.
That's right.
Yeah, we knew, but North Carolina was always red.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of New Yorkers leave and go to,
Oh, yeah.
and they brought their politics with it, and it's almost flipped the state to
Right.
where it's almost a swing. It's still red, but it can swing.
Yeah.
Same thing happened in Virginia too. That's how you ended up with the liberal governor there, and they went right for the guns, instantly right for the guns.
A lot of Virginians stood up to that too. In fact, they were armed, marching, openly disobeying the laws. So
Right.
civil disobedience.
So that's one article in the news. D.C. is its own state, and maybe you want to leave a comment.
Yeah.
What do you think about D.C. as its own state? I think it's power grab. I think I think the Democrats know they have the power, and they're trying to get it so that they will never lose the power.
Yeah.
So,
That's what they're doing with the whole voter reform. They're going to make.
Right.
They are going to make sure that this never flips back to another Trump.
the way I look
Right.
at D.C.,
I mean, they're making it so that you don't even have to provide. If you want an absentee ballot, they can't even ask you
Yeah.
for any form of
Any proof,
identification.
right.
But to vote out
crazy.
Governor Newsom in California, you got to show up in person.
They're recalling him right
Yeah,
now. They're about
you too saying that.
200,000 votes away from recalling the governor. That's how much
awesome.
they hate
We
him
need to
in,
do that
in
in
that
New York.
state. Right. But the state has made it so that you cannot make that vote unless it's in person. And they said because they fear there might be fraud. You can't make
How
this
hypocritical.
democracy up. You heard Bezos is doing the same thing because they're trying to. The workers are trying to unionize in Amazon, and Bezos said all the votes that come in through the union workers have to come in person because they're afraid of fraud.
that will destroy them.
How does this continue? I mean,
Yeah,
why
oh,
are
I
they,
know, I know.
Oh, but we had the fairest, freest election in history.
Yeah,
there was
right.
no
Yeah.
fraud to speak
And
of.
Biden got the most votes out of any president in history. You believe that? Biden, Joe Biden.
Ba-
Slow,
basement-
Joe.
if
basement
you
Biden?
don't, you're crazy.
Right.
Yeah, I know. It's
You're a
unbelievable.
racist. You're a lunatic. You are a tyrant. I fear you.
Yeah.
You might storm the Capitol.
Yeah.
I have
80
been-
million Americans?
I have not been all over the country, but in the past 3 weeks,
You've been everywhere,
I've
man.
been everywhere, man. I knew that was coming.
It was there.
I've seen a lot of country over the past 3 weeks, and there is now obviously you get into the liberal strongholds in the cities,
Of course.
and you don't see the Biden signs everywhere. But as you travel, there is Trump everywhere.
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 I mean, everywhere.
There's a
After
And-
he's out, you'd think people would just put the stuff
They
away.
still have them
not.
out, or they have the 2024 ones. I've seen some of them
Yeah,
where they
I've seen
cross
that.
out and they just put the 4 over it. But there's a
You're right,
farmer's
Miles.
field.
I mean, it's
It's-
proof that he won.
Yeah,
he won.
There's a farmer's field in Arcade where the guy's got a big old, like almost billboard size sign up there that says Trump, and he's got probably maybe not 30, maybe 20 of those lawn signs all in his field on each side of the road.
Oh, yeah.
So he's popular in this area.
We can quick throw in. I'm sorry, you're going to say
I was
something?
just going to say one thing before you move on from this, the D.C. being its own state and all that. And to me, I look at D.C., obviously, I mean, it's its own energy force, right? You got the Capitol and Congress and all that stuff. New York City, how much more? I mean, it's a global city. New York City is UN and companies from all over the world, which it's probably Babylon. But and seriously though, it makes sense to be its own animal
It does.
because it already is.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, just from a financial point of view, it's like, yeah.
Would the state, though, I wonder, would our state be able to sustain itself?
Absolutely.
You think
Yeah,
so?
I mean,
Absolutely.
we have a lot of.
There's a lot of great companies.
If you would,
in New York.
again, get rid of, we'll call it the blue tape instead of the red tape. right? The political blue tape.
Yeah.
What could we do with Niagara Falls?
Oh, yeah.
I know.
I mean, come on. Renovate it. Make
Yeah.
it huge. You could
Right.
have a constant tourist attraction.
Been saying that for like the past
We
5
do
years.
have
You go up there
tourism.
during the holiday season, and across the falls,
Yep.
it's festive, it's lit. People are
You have the environmentalists on our side that go, oh, you can't do anything, you can't do anything. It's like, you don't have to touch the falls. Build around the falls and clean up the pig mess.
Yeah,
Yep.
I know, it's bad.
it's visibly different.
Yep.
Right.
Visibly. Our side is just boring, stale.
But New York's a liberal utopia.
Let's real quick talk, and I don't have this in my notes, but it is certainly a pressing issue, and I heard you guys talking about it before we started recording. How about Executive Order Biden?
It's insane.
He's at 40, I
Yeah.
think, right now. Within about 9-10 days has he been in office?
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure of the number. I know he signed about 17, like within a day or so.
Don't worry, his spokeswoman will circle back to answer that at some point.
Isn't
I'll
it
circle
horrible?
back.
She
I'll
can't
circle
answer
back.
a question to save her
Kayleigh McEnany was amazing. She
She was.
incredible. Her mind, I don't know how she did what she did, but she could just
Yeah, she
spout
was
off
good.
answers.
Didn't you
She
see
was
the folder
always
she
prepared.
had? That
She tore
folder
up.
was a diary of
When she pulled that
everything.
folder out, man, you're like, oh, she's
Yep,
gonna slap
Kayleigh's
somebody.
folders out. Yeah, we're done. This new one, I'm gonna have to circle back.
Circle back. We'll circle back. Are you going to answer? And they're not even asking a difficult question. Not yet.
I've heard a few difficult. I've
Have you?
heard a couple of
Yeah,
them.
there were a couple
just
like
a
about
couple
his,
snippets.
his mask when he
Yeah.
made the federal land mask mandate and then stood.
She
at the
basically said
Lincoln
we have bigger
Memorial.
issues. To
Right,
look at.
stood at the Lincoln Memorial without a mask on.
Yeah.
He doesn't know where he is.
Well, that's true too.
It's also hypocrisy. They don't
Yeah,
really
no, I
believe
know.
it.
No, I think the point that I want to bring up is, and I can't quote it exactly, but he said something akin on the campaign trail that a president who rules by executive order is not a legislator, but a dictator.
Right.
Hello. Right. So he's showing his true colors.
This is the frustrating part.
it's not
the
him.
hypocrisy.
Yeah.
It's
And
like-
that it's so open and
and there ain't nothing
obvious.
you can do, and they're just like,
It's
you
not
guys
him.
believe that?
I know.
Yeah.
It's not him. He's just following orders. There's a bigger monster
Well,
right
I
there.
don't think he even knew what he said last week, right?
It's kind of like Fauci in March. Nobody should be walking around with masks.
I
It makes
know.
people feel better. It might catch a droplet or two, but they really
Yep.
don't do anything. Nobody should. There's
Now
no
they want two
reason.
masks.
Now we're down. Yeah.
2 masks.
Yep.
Now
The
it's-
N95, and then put your pretty one outside so that you
Yeah.
can make a fashion statement.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it ain't happening.
More of a virtue signal.
Yeah. All right, well, let's move on to then this other article that I got from One America News Network.
This drives me nuts.
And this is about Biden's fracking ban.
Yeah.
This is egregious on so many
It's
levels.
so bad.
What was it? 10,000? 17,000?
20,000
20,000.
jobs.
And let me read the article. It actually mentions that. Joe Biden issued an executive order to ban fracking on federal lands. The order was signed Wednesday, which Biden declared as Climate Change Day. Can I just throw up all over this sheet of paper right now? Climate Change Day.
I know. And you don't have a job.
Rainbows and fairies and all that other stuff, right? In an address, Biden claimed he wants to protect jobs even amid his left-wing climate agenda.
It's such a. You can't read this stuff seriously.
No.
Quote, "This is not time for small measures," Biden said. "We need to be bold."
Yeah.
So let me be clear. Listen, whenever a Democrat says, "let me be clear," they're going to be as ambiguous as possible.
Yeah, right.
That's
It
right,
will be
Obama.
anything but clear, right?
Sounds like Obama. Let me be clear.
Well, they were together, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's true.
So let me be clear. That includes revitalizing the economies of coal, oil, and gas and power plant communities. We have to start by creating new, good-paying jobs. Okay, great.
Where are they?
Don't end those jobs before you've created an alternative.
Thank you. Exactly.
I'm just gonna go home to my wife tonight and be like, "Hey, honey, I quit.
Yeah.
I'm just. We'll
There's
figure
a
out
job
something.
coming."
There's a job, I'm sure."
Well, and let me say this: when the the climate czar
Oh,
John
yeah.
Kerry, when he was questioned about it and the loss of jobs, his response was akin to, The workers need to be making better decisions about what jobs to be taking.
Oh my goodness.
How elitist is that?
It's disgusting. It's like spitting in someone's face.
Oh my
The
goodness.
same John Kerry trying to relate to the people on the campaign trail. He goes into a sportsman's, like a gun store or something, says, I'm here to buy a hunting license.
Oh boy.
It's like Hillary Clinton saying, "Oh, I keep hot sauce in my purse." You know, you're
right.
pandering.
Yeah.
Right. But kind of what
On a hunting license.
what John Kerry, what Biden are saying, it's kind of like they're going, your job is not good. You need to find a new job.
Right.
You're fired so that you can go find a new job.
Yeah, no, I'm helping you out.
No. How about if I need a new job, okay,
Right.
let me keep it and I'll look. Right? You shouldn't just quit. Like, you would never tell your kid, hey, go just quit and go look for a new one. No, find another job and then you put in your 2-week notice and do this respectfully, right?
Right.
So then, if you're talking about this creation of new jobs, we're going to create, then create them.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's
And
it.
then offer them as an alternative. Maybe the guy who's doing the fracking will go, hey, you know what? If I can make $40 an hour working here on solar panels, okay,
Right.
I'll do it then. If it's better for the environment, then. But they're working out of order. Let
Yep.
me continue reading. However, it is unclear how the Democrat plans to do that.
Yeah.
Experts said his climate policies have already had a negative impact on the economy by threatening thousands of jobs.
The pipeline jobs, too.
That's
Keystone.
yeah, it's in this.
Yeah.
According to Steve Malloy, a former Trump-Pence EPA transition member and founder of JunkScience.com,
Like that.
the federal fracking ban could set America behind the curve in terms of energy independence compared to countries like Russia and China.
Weren't we officially energy independent under Trump?
Yes.
Am I mistaken?
Yes.
We were officially finally energy.
Yeah.
And
Something
that's
we
why-
never
and
thought
that's-
we could
and
do.
that's why your gas prices were $2.
Exactly.
Yeah. The effects are
what
going to be
happens now.
felt nationwide because the reason we still have $2, $3 gasoline is because of fracking, Malloy stated. If Joe Biden succeeds in getting rid of fracking, we're going to have $8 gasoline, $10 gasoline. That's just going to be economically devastating. And if you know anything about Canada, or in Canada, by the way, Quebec is the third largest producer of oil in the world.
I didn't know that.
We want to pipeline to them. And by the way, it's also ecologically better to run it through a pipeline than it is to transport it
That's
through
right.
truck
That's
and,
what I don't
and freighter.
understand. I know. And dangerous.
Right, more danger. Nothing makes sense other than it cripples us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It must be by design. Nothing makes sense because it's not for the or for the environment. This order is just, to continue reading, this order is just the latest in a string of catastrophic economic decisions Biden enacted as part of his climate agenda. Earlier this month, Biden rescinded the permit for the Keystone XL oil pipeline, which put an estimated 20,000 people out of work. It's a completely pointless loss of jobs. It's going to cost billions of dollars in wealth creation, billions of dollars in state and local taxes, and all for no reason, Malloy added. Because the oil that he is trying to block from being refined in the U.S. is just going to come over the border,
Right.
not by pipeline, but by rail car, which is more dangerous.
Exactly.
On day one of his presidency, Biden reversed President Trump's decision to pull out of the Paris Climate Accord. President Trump lambasted the agreement for threatening American workers and forcing the U.S. to be less energy independent.
Exactly.
Quoting Trump now, the Paris Accord was not designed to save the environment. It was designed to kill the American economy,
That's
President Trump said. I refuse to surrender millions of American jobs and send trillions of American dollars to the world's worst polluters and environmental
Amen.
offenders, and that's what would have happened.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to happen now.
So this is my question regarding this pipeline. What is so anti-green about it? It's just digging in the ground. What is the
they're
bad?
they're not digging. They're not
there's
even digging in the
there's-
ground. It's a raised pipeline. Wildlife can pass underneath it. It's I do believe that the biggest complaint that I heard about it was the oil that was passing through it. It was going to be warm, and where it passes, it threatens to melt the tundra or whatever. I can't.
Okay.
It's so silly. Any argument I've heard against the pipeline, breakage was the other. If there was a crack somewhere in the pipeline,
you don't want the oil to spill back into the ground where it came from.
Right. But the thing of it is let's
I'm not saying we want to just spill oil.
Let's not bring up that they
also
have
not be-
pressure monitoring systems for pipelines like that,
Sure.
where if the
course
least
they do.
little drop in pressure sets off alarms and shuts valves, and
Of
They
course
have-
none of
there
that-
can
none of
be
that exists.
accidents. You don't shut. I
Well,
mean, you
how about
don't
a
stop
train?
using natural gas in people's homes because there could be a leak.
Right.
Right. I mean,
There's a risk to everything, and
Always.
we've got corrosion control. There's so much that goes along.
A
with
rail
this.
car could tip over.
Right.
Hello?
it has many
Rail
I mean,
cars tip over all the time.
boats,
Boats, Gulf of Mexico a few years ago, all that stuff. I mean,
Valdez, right? To the oil Valdez thing in
Yeah.
Alaska.
Not to mention, every time you fill a cargo, and I'm a trucker, I'm all for trucking it, but every time you take a container like that, multiple containers, and you fill and unload, you get spillage. It just happens. There's going to be how much, over the course of the billions or trillions of gallons of oil
Yeah.
going through that pipeline would have spilled on the wayside, being transferred via train,
Right.
truck. It's
Right.
crazy. It's just pure craziness.
so if it doesn't make sense, follow the money.
Well, and this isn't following American money because it's
Right.
not money going into Americans' pockets.
Right.
It's going to cost American jobs. I watched a video. There's this guy posting, crying, big burly guy working on the pipeline, crying, saying, "I just bought a car. I'm going to have to sell it. I'm out of a job." He goes, "We're in the midst of a pandemic. I don't know when I'm going to have another good-paying job." It's like, this is horrible, and this guy's crying. It's like, he goes, "At the stroke of a pen, I lost my whole life."
20,000.
That brings up the other topic, and I don't know.
Couldn't even see it coming.
Every president
Well,
has probably
actually could.
had executive orders to some point or another, but I can't remember. And this doesn't make it fact, but I can't remember anyone before Obama using the pen nearly as much. And it started with Obama, and Trump, kicked Obama's butt with it, and now you got Biden, who's just he's up to 40 already, and
insane.
it's crazy. They need to take that power away.
Right.
A lot of this
There's
is-
got to be a checks and balance. Look at the chaos that has ensued by all three presidents, not just
Right.
the Democrats, but the chaos that ensued just because you allow a president to sign
It's
an
true.
executive order. And look at the chaos in New York State
Yep.
from Cuomo and his executive orders.
Which are
That-
at near 400 now?
Right,
or whatever?
that kind of power cannot happen. It should not happen, especially in a republic like this.
Right.
It should.
Right. Where
Term
our
limits.
leaders are supposed to represent our interests. I was thinking about this, and I don't know how you would go about doing this, but wouldn't it be refreshing and nice if there was a controversial subject matter, maybe not just an average little bill or what have you, but a one that's a big thing that can affect people a lot. If the president could reach out to the populace and say, "What do you guys think?
Yeah,
What
right.
do you want?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you want us to stop this wall? Do you want us to stop the pipeline, or
Right.
should we keep going? Do you want, and here, let's weigh out the information. If we stop it, maybe it'll be a little ecologically better, which it isn't, but
Right.
but your gas prices are going to go up to $6 an hour. Or are you willing to take the risk of keeping this pipe and keep your gas at $2 an hour? Let them decide and go, okay, well, the people have spoken.
Right.
See the whole wall thing. That should
It's already paid for.
that should have been
know.
that should have been something that the residents of the state that the wall was in.
Not
That
a say on. Well, Texas sued. I don't know if you heard about
Yes.
that, and won. They sued that executive order that that stopped the ejection of illegals,
Yeah.
and they won.
Nice.
So yeah, they said no, you have no right. Listen, Texas. If any state's going to fight this right, it's going to be Texas.
right.
And if they fight it right, and that includes secession, other states will follow.
like Wyoming,
Where is this going?
maybe Missouri or something.
Right.
Like, how do you stand up against? And this is tyranny, and insurrection by your government,
Right.
a foreign government from within your government.
Right.
Right.
How do you stop that?
Well, there's ties to Ukraine, ties to China, but nobody wanted to pay attention to that.
So because right now, if you disagree with the direction it's going, you're automatically a racist, right, far away, But how do you stop it? I don't trust my vote.
Right.
I can't vote it out.
That was proven this past election.
And I don't know how to say this without sounding like the crazy guy that he just wants to take up arms. No, I don't want to take up arms. But someone please tell me, how do you take your republic back?
I know.
Someone give me an alternative outside of arms, because I'm all ears.
Right. Exactly. I don't know the answer.
And the only thing I can think of is local voting.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Making sure we get the right representatives
Right.
in the House and do that on that smaller scale.
Right. Because you might have control over like your neighborhood.
Because you might
your
never,
town.
we may never get the president
Right,
back, but
right.
if we can keep the House and the Senate, it's
Right.
going to limit the president's power.
Yeah. Or you move to a county, right? We
Or
both
state.
live in Erie County.
Or as a state, you secede
Right. Yeah.
and say, we don't want that. We want the United States of America. We're going to keep the Constitution. You guys do your socialist whatever.
Right.
That's what I would definitely prefer.
Of course.
And
but-
even a different county, I mean, we're still subject to, unfortunately,
State law.
like with New York. I mean, New York City's gun laws are ridiculous.
Oh, I'm sure.
But even New York State, we're affected by just that general liberalism.
Absolutely.
And we have more freedom than New York City, but still not enough freedom. And but an example like you're talking about, Joe, is when Cuomo passed the SAFE Act, or what is often referred to as the Unsafe
Yeah,
Act,
right.
which restricted our firearms even more, in a number of different ways. A lot of the sheriffs, Wyoming County Sheriff, Erie County Sheriff, most of the sheriffs around New York State said, we will not enforce that law in our state or in our county.
Or in the county, yep.
So
right.
you do sometimes, if you're in a rural county or a conservative county, sometimes you can get some
Right.
help in
Well,
that
by the
area,
way,
but-
the guy running for, there's 3 guys running for Sheriff Howard's position, and one of them is Delano. I went to go hear him
familiar.
speak, and
sounds very familiar.
he calls it the Unsafe Act. He said that he would actually go after Cuomo and his regime to find fraud.
Amen.
He will not enforce masks. He will not enforce any the SAFE Act. And so there is a number of things. He said nothing that's tyrannical. He goes, we are going to follow the Constitution. So this is the guy that you want to vote for this year, Delano. You want to vote for him for sheriff. I was thinking of even inviting him to church. And I don't want to get political in the church, so it would be outside of it, like it wouldn't be a Sunday. Maybe
It
have
would
him
be
come in.
using the building.
Yes,
basically
use the
for-
building to give him a voice, to talk to our people. We can invite our community,
Sure.
and maybe even do it in a podcast setting where we
can
can
do
let
that.
him talk and record the podcast and then let him answer questions from the audience.
Yeah.
That'd be
So
cool.
that's a possibility.
Back to the seceding thing, I want to touch on real quick. If anyone Texas secedes, think about that. They are the largest oil producer in the union.
Yep.
It would be great for Texas because
yeah.
I mean they would really have
30 cents a gallon for
right,
that.
a stranglehold on the rest of the country.
Well, they'd
But-
be independent.
But if you think that it would not happen without bloodshed, there would be
Well, it didn't happen the first time without
Right.
bloodshed.
Right.
And you're right, and it may come to that.
I mean, look at how America has
It would
a
have given me the
history
war
of
of northern aggression.
yeah,
Sure it would.
Yep.
All the leftists in the north.
I've thought about that. But I have a dad in Texas, so I have an in.
Yeah, there you go. Going back to this though, with this oil, me and Pastor Seth have had conversations personally about like, hey, where do I? This is gonna get me in trouble. Where do I
Yeah, be
lean?
careful about bringing me into
I
this
know,
conversation,
right?
too.
But you'll know what I'm saying. Where do I maybe politically lean a little liberal? And I've shared this with Seth, is that I lean a little more with the green energy. Now, just bear with me. To where common sense, where it makes sense, though.
Sure.
Okay. Do I recycle? Sure. Why wouldn't I? They
That's just-
provide
that's
a
just
receptacle
logical.
for me. I recycle. Okay. This doesn't make sense. You know, so green energy. Yeah, I could have a battery operate my house. Okay, for 10 years. Then what do you do with the battery?
Right.
Yeah.
So it's stuff like that
Yeah.
they don't have mapped out because they're just, that's what they're doing.
Joe,
not-
I think you're like saying, well, hear me out. I understand where you're coming from, but
Well,
I
these
think,
people
I think
could-
we get represented or misrepresented, and sometimes maybe we do it to ourselves. It's like
We do.
We don't want to just throw oil everywhere and kill baby
Mm-hmm.
bunnies and stuff. That's not our intention. I don't mind using an alternative source. Find me an alternative source
Right.
that works, that's efficient,
And let it be reliable
Right.
for years.
and reliable.
And it can't.
That's fine.
Let's be honest. It can't hurt my pocketbook. I can't
Right.
pay 3 times the cost.
Money talks.
That's not worth it for me.
No.
But they
I
make it
would
sound
agree.
like doing oil is going back to the 20s and 30s when we had soot spewing chimneys
You're right.
all over the country, and that's not what's going on here.
That's
But that's
media.
how they paint
Yeah.
it.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't even know about the recycling thing. I got to be honest with you because you follow it to its end game.
Goes to the same dump.
It usually
It
does,
does.
I think. Yeah.
It does, but what it did was it created a bunch of jobs that make people dependent on the state.
That's true too. Right.
That if I
Yeah.
can force those regulations on businesses so that I can and make the businesses bear the burden of it so that we can create and your taxpayer bear the burden of
Jobs.
of people then and this person works for a recycling. He's like, well, I don't want to lose my $25 or $30 an hour job.
Right.
Glad I have this recycling job.
Right,
well, you
right.
wouldn't have had it 50 years ago. You have it now, but it was forced on us, and now you're dependent on the state.
Right. And the other, with that same argument, is here's
It wasn't national. It wasn't industry that made it.
Yeah, right.
Right? They
It's
didn't
politics.
create the job.
Right, and it's here's my plastic water bottle I bought at the gas station for $2. Hey, it says 75% made with recyclable plastic. Well, why isn't this bottle cheaper? Why isn't it cheaper than it was a couple months ago?
Because it costs more money to use
right.
recycled
Yeah, because
product.
it's a bunch of malarkey.
So even in that, you say, well, recycling's
Yeah.
good. I don't know if it's good or not.
Yeah, good for
I
who?
don't.
Good for
I
what?
can't trust anything that they say. I don't know that they say, oh, well, we have a shortage of this. I don't know that we do.
Yeah,
oh, our
true.
oceans are filled with this. I don't know that they are.
Yeah. I'm with you, brother.
Oh, well, look at this picture of this ocean. Okay, that's
when?
one little section in one little area. That could just be your disgusting area. I mean, I don't know.
Right.
Right? I mean, here's a picture of a polar bear floating on an iceberg. Look at the iceman. The dude, he swam up on it and he's floating on it. He's
Yeah.
just chilling out. It ain't him losing his home.
I know.
I've got this
How
meme.
far do you take
I've got this meme of a snake coming out of the water with a fish in its mouth. And the meme says, look at that brave snake save the life of that fish, pulling him out. And it says how the media would report this today.
Wow.
Yeah.
As long as the snake was a Democrat.
So there
Which
you
they
have
are.
it. That's in the news for this week. And hopefully you've enjoyed this podcast. And we look forward to giving you another one. God bless your day.